What's going on, everybody? We want to welcome y'all to the Blerd Origins panel. I'm Kavon, also known as the Grito Suave. We got JD, Beast, JD, JK Beast Turtle.
Still hurt. Oh, I'm just joking. Hey everybody. Name's Jonathan Smith. Everybody knows me as JK. But on my gaming platforms, I'm Beast Turtle.
Yep. You got Creston, not Sir.
What's going on, everybody? Yeah, my name is Creston Shirley. You can follow me on all socials at Creston Shirley. And then my gaming alias is Not Cert. You can also find me on social and Twitch and all of the fun stuff. So, yeah.
Yep. And then we got AJ, Noslinja.
How's everybody doing? Yeah, like Kavon said, my name is AJ. I do not go by No Slinja. It's just a gamer tag.
Yeah,
but yeah, happy to be here.
All right, cool. So today we talking about, how everybody got into blerdery, how that led to tech, all that good stuff. So I guess we'll start at the top. Like, so how did y'all get into like your nerd stuff? Like, who introduced you? What did y'all do together? Like, how did that happen for everybody?
I guess I'll go real quick. So for me, I got into like comics and cartoons and like stuff like that when I was younger. My uncle is a big comic book superhero fan. My parents are too. So the cool thing was that sometimes we would watch Saturday morning cartoons, watch Batman Animated Adventures, Spider-Man, Superman, and stuff like that. But as since my dad was in the military, I got a chance to travel overseas, and in Korea, I got introduced to anime. But I just thought there were cartoons. I know they were called anime, so I watched a lot of that over there. But then when I got back here in Arkansas, I got introduced to Dragon Ball Z. Ever since then, I started watching anime from Outlaw Star to Dragon Ball Z to Toonami on on Saturdays, Cartoon Network and stuff like that, and yeah, and then gaming, same thing. Got introduced to Sega and Nintendo when I was younger, and ever since I started playing Mario and Mortal Kombat and stuff like that, I just fell in love with gaming, and it was history after that. And yeah, and then lo and behold, went to Florida A&M when I graduated from high school. Met with go Rattlers. Any Rattlers in the house, go Rattlers. And met Creston, met AJ. Unfortunately, and I'm joking. And met AJ when we're at our computer science department. When met Creston through our gaming club at Florida A&M, which is still thriving strong. We actually got 2 people at Florida A&M going into the national championship for esports. So it's still thriving strong. So our baby is growing up. So but yeah, and now we're doing Blerd Dimension with all these fine young blerds here. Some who are probably playing Outriders right now or have family issues, whatever, it's fine. But we love them either way. And so, yeah, so now we're here talking to y'all, talking about our origins. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Anybody got anything else different? Probably do. More exciting stuff, most likely.
Yeah, I can go next. So I come from a pretty nerdy family. I actually kind of sometimes I forget because I just remember like before we got started recording. I just remember like always hanging out with my cousins and my uncles and aunts, and all of us like we all loved like sci-fi and uh cartoons. We always were trading video games with like my cousins, and every time we got together we were always talking about cartoons. So me personally, like my family especially on my dad's side was extremely blerdy, and they were kind of my way of getting into a lot of different stuff. I have had an older brother about 6 years older than I was, and he was into a lot of this stuff. So usually all the stuff that he got, I would just get passed down. That's how I really got into to like hip hop, to gaming, got into technology, and also like my dad as well. He was also like a big Blerd, and I remember every time we would see like a big blockbuster. So like the earliest memory that I have is like going to go see Independence Day for the first time. I was about 6 years old, and us like talking about that, like all like I forget which movie theater we went to, but on the ride home, like we were just kind of like picking it apart and just like saying, "Oh man, you remember that part and this and this and that, or what does that mean?" And so we always had like that dialogue, and it was extremely fun, and that just continued all the way through until even to this day. And I didn't have at an early age. I didn't have cable, so my main form of like blerdery was really getting into gaming, because there was really nothing on TV outside of like starting at 3:30. You had like your afternoon cartoons on with Toonami, and then you jump into like 6 o'clock. It was like Simpsons for like an hour, and then it was like Friends, and I didn't watch Friends, like come on now. And then and then like Sundays you had like the new episodes of like Simpsons, King of the Hill, Family Guy, American Dad, like all of those like Fox animated shows. Like that was kind of like my way of like getting into that. But yeah, no, that just kind of continued all the way through. Gaming is like my one of my biggest passions. I've always loved it since I picked up a controller. Still do to this day. Later on I got into anime and stuff, outside of like Dragon Ball Z and all of the the real popular ones. But really it was everything was through family. Like I had older cousins like that had like I remember going to see the PS2 for the first time at my cousin's house. Like he's also about 6 to 8 years older than I am. And just going over there and just being like, yo, like PS2 and this, and Madden 2001. I thought you were in the future. So all of this stuff was just like passed down, and I definitely can't take credit for all of that, but it was thankfully I'm in a nerdy family, so I'm grateful for that. So yeah.
That's dope. I can go next. I guess for me it's similar. I grew up in a family of nerds, but on my mom's side, like my mom is a Trekkie. My uncle used to have like a massive like comic book collection that we weren't even allowed to look at when he wasn't home. And I've told y'all this, but like one of my earliest memories is playing Mortal Kombat when I was like 4. Like all my, my grandma, her husband, my mom, they all had work. So it was me and my brother, he's 12. And then my uncle is not that much older than him. They play Mortal Kombat, so I'm playing Mortal Kombat. And went on like that. We played like everything. They had probably every game on the Super Nintendo ever. So we played a lot of different like Tecmo Bowl and all that old stuff. And then like that same brother went to DeVry after high school to study. I don't remember what his major or whatever they called it when DeVry was a real thing. And he would bring like all that stuff home and like teach me what he was learning. Like I think the first computer that I ever used like in my house was a ThinkPad that they let him borrow. And so yeah, it was continued on like that. Like my mom is still into sci-fi and stuff like that. And I mean, I haven't talked to my uncle in a minute, and I think he sold his comic book collection after a while. But like they all still, doing nerdy stuff. Like my brother's still watching anime. We talk anime from time to time. And so yeah, I was just kind of like you said, kind of lucky to grow up around people who were into this stuff. So it's like even when I didn't have people to talk to outside the house, like it was always I could always come home and have those types of discussions. So yeah, that was kind of my the beginning for me. What about you, AJ?
Shoot, I guess it's it's 4 in a row then, because like that's pretty much my story. My story is like a mix of all of your stories. My dad was in the military. Actually, both my parents were in the military. So I got JK story where we're bouncing around. So you really don't. I mean, you just you run into so many different like cultures and stuff like that. Like I spent like my formative years in Hawaii. So that's kind of where I started to like nerd out. But my dad and both my dad and my mom have different nerd aspects. My mom graduated from FAMU with a computer science degree, and so she's the reason I know anything about technology. She would bring home computers, show me how to take them apart, stuff like that. And my dad is just an overall pretty much a nerd. He's a Star Trek fan. He recently went back to college at the ripe age of like 58, and one of his main papers was about like the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek. Like so, like these are still things that he thinks about. He's also a tinkerer. He builds things. He's built things around the house to varying degrees of success. He's kind of like is an everyman. So because he has all those skills, I kind of like, as his son, I'm walking around trying to follow in his footsteps. He's a talented artist. So I started drawing and stuff like that because he did. And that got me into animation, which got me into anime because, that was the 90s is when I grew up, and anime kind of started exploding around that time in America. So I really got into animation. I actually wanted to do that for school, but my parents were like, you're not gonna make any money. You're gonna be broke forever. So they kind of discouraged that. So I just followed my mom's footsteps and went to FAMU, and I was like, I'm not gonna do computer science. That's way too much math. But they had another program in the same building called Computer Information Systems, where you do like a lot of more business focused stuff. You're kind of training to be a technology liaison instead of the technologist yourself. But I liked all the programming classes. So I ended up being a programmer anyway, even though I was like literally trying to avoid that path. But all my friends were in programming classes, and the business stuff was literally busy work. Like that's what the business stands for in business school. So I was like, I can't do this. I can't just write papers about things I don't care about for 4 years. So I started doing a lot of programming classes. That's when I really fell in love with tech. Video games had always been in my life on all sides. Like my whole family they're all nerds. So my uncle on my mom's side is how I got into like video games early, played Sega. I watched him beat all of the Sonics. And then my cousins on my dad's side, we would go spend the night at my grandma's house and just stay in the garage and play games literally the whole night. So it's like video games was always there, but tech wasn't there until I got to college and I started seeing what you could do with programming. And I was like, okay, this kind of like I can see a future career path for this because it's interesting enough. Because if something doesn't have my interest, I leave immediately. Like I check out. So I'm glad that like technology keeps evolving and stuff like that. So it keeps my interest. And then UI UX showed up. I like to draw. I like art. I like visual stuff. So then I got into the UI UX field as well as programming. So same story as everybody here, which I think is probably more common than we actually like. There's a stereotype for Black people, but Black people didn't make that stereotype. So I'm sure most Black people are blerds in some way, shape, or form because it's too broad of a subject for there not to be almost every Black person in it. I used to talk to my cousins who were like football players, everything like that, and then we would just nerd out about Dragon Ball Z. Right? So I think that like we've all had the same story, and it's pretty cool that like this is the first time hearing for me hearing Kavon's story and all of Creston's story. So it's cool to see that it's exactly the same as mine.
Word. And so you actually kind of went into my next thing, like how did your like blerdy background lead you to a career in tech? Do you want to expound any? Or
yeah. I'll go ahead. Go ahead. So like I was saying, my mother went to FAMU and she was a computer scientist. So when we were in Hawaii, it was when she got her first computer science job. Before that, she had just done some military stuff, and then she was basically taking care of me, but I guess I was a handful. Like she literally told me I was a handful, so she got a job. And eventually she was able to like start her business in Hawaii as like she learned some application that like managed documents, and the lawyers in Hawaii needed someone who had experience in it. So she was able to start a business in like 95 and do really well because nobody else knew it. I mean, Hawaii is kind of a small island. I mean, it has a lot of people, but it's small. And technologists, I don't know if that was like a real thing in the 90s like it is now. So she did really well. She was, she pretty much could just, write her own check. She would hop from place to place, teaching these people how to use this this system called PC Docs. So she would bring home computers and stuff all the time. So I was learning how to DOS load my video games because she got tired of typing in the commands. So she's like, all right, you're going to at least understand how to get through this directory to your executable file and play your dinosaur game, because I'm not going to do this again. So that happened. And then elementary school, they got me into a laptop program. So we were using laptops for all of our work. And then I moved back to Florida and literally dropped back into the Stone Age for about like 3 years. but yeah, so because my family's always been in tech in some capacity because of my mother, it was just, once they discouraged me from everything that they thought wouldn't make money for me, I was like, oh, so I get it. This is where you want me to go. It's the only place to go. So I went into tech, and I mean, I'm glad. I don't think I could do any other thing.
I feel you. So what about JK, Creston? How do y'all feel like the Blerdy background led you to tech?
For me, it was always so funny thing. I used to play the old like pinball machine, like the pinball 3D pinball on my dad's gateway. And so even back then I was always interested in computers, because I also saw him like take apart a computer and I think he was putting some new RAM in. It was the ancient computer, so it wouldn't help anyway. So but I remember also too, like my dad used to like let me handle like all the used to have like the floppy disk and the zip drives and stuff, and all that stuff, and so he used it for work, and I would just be playing Doom with floppy disk or Duke Nukem, Wolfenstein, stuff like that. So I had like stacks of floppy disks with all these games, and so as computers kind of evolved, I evolved with them in a sense. I didn't build my first computer until I got out of college. So, but even as I went along with playing like PC games and console games and stuff like that, I used to download stuff on the internet, or I became kind of an expert in the house. So like every time something goes down or something needs to be put together or something needs to be fixed and it's anything tech, my dad would make me do it by myself. So just read the instructions. I was like, well, you can do it too. Like what? Like you can read too. I know you
right.
can.
We can both read.
You both read. You did your master's. I know you can read. But no. So like with tech, it got more interesting as I got into high school, and it kind of like, so the interesting thing is that since I moved around so much, I always met nerdy people, but like in Korea, I met a whole bunch of people who played Pokemon and Digimon, stuff like that. When I was in the States, I was kind of not alone, but like I was like the nerdy person that everybody kind of knew. Even though I was this big dude that played football or played sports. So I was in that niche of everybody on the team knew that I like nerdy stuff, like anime and stuff like that. But I always met people who were in the same realm. Like I met people who were not only Black, but who were Puerto Rican, people who were Latinos, Latinas, people who from other countries and stuff like that. So like it was, at first I thought I was alone, but then like I started meeting more Black people, more people of color who like anime as well. So it kind of fueled my fire of, just be you and just watch what you want to watch, do what you want to do, play what you want to play. So when it came to tech, like coming to FAMU, like I didn't know any programming. I didn't know anything. When somebody said, what language do you know? I was like, I only know English. I know a little bit about Spanish. They were like, oh, no. I mean, programming. I was like, oh, I don't know anything. So when I saw C++, and well, shout out to our teacher, our professor, Dr. Black. Jason Black, he's a professor at Florida A&M. He was one of the big advocates of teaching us programming through gaming. And so I took his class and I struggled and struggled and struggled and almost failed. And then he was like, don't worry, like everybody, you just coming into a lot of people who seen this for years, like it took them that long to understand it. So I just kept going. And then of course I met, AJ and Creston, another one of our good friends, Marvio, um, and a bunch of other great people at FAM who not only taught me a lot of things, a lot of ways how to program, but also that, hey, just keep going and just keep working at it. So I would say definitely going to FAM was one of the best decisions I made. I didn't want to go at first. I wanted to go to all the big names, through Florida, University of Florida, or Florida Atlantic, UCF, stuff like that. I was like, oh, all these big names, it'll be better. And I thought about it. I was like, maybe it won't. Maybe it wouldn't be. I don't know. But actually, a big factor was I played football at Florida A&M, so I got a scholarship there, so to speak. So that was a big factor. But even being on the team, like kind of AJ said, like being on the football team, like everybody knew I liked anime. Everybody knew I was a nerdy person. So the coaches knew all that stuff. So it was, so I was that go-to like nerdy person. But people on the football team like Dragon Ball Z anime or something along those lines. So so yeah, so that was, I hope I kind of answered the question. I probably didn't, but that's just for me, like how my progression in tech and nerd and being a Blerd kind of progressed over time. So
Yeah. Yeah, very, very similar. I too was appointed or anointed the tech IT person of the family. So that was just kind of by chance. I mean, my dad and my brother were I actually got a chance to build my first computer around like 11 or 12, I believe. um my one of my dad's friends was really big into like computers, and he used to go to, back when there was computer shows. I don't know if our younger audience knows about that, but before we had like Newegg or Tiger Direct and all of that stuff. I mean, that stuff was there, but it was more like it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. The way that people used to, trade and get new products and stuff was through computer shows. So people would just come there, set up their own table, sell some, some computer cases, some RAM, some any type of equipment that people wanted. And then you can also talk to people as well. Like one of the things that I ran into early on was trying to figure out, like I was so another nerdy fact about me, I'm really into trains. And so the way that my two loves, trains and games, kind of collided was that there was so back in 2000 there was a Microsoft train simulator. And I when I said I was like fiending for that game, like I was fiending for it. And when I finally got it, I come to learn that my PC just wasn't good enough to run it. So I was like, okay, what is going on? Like why isn't this working? So that's when I started learning about like the computer parts and figuring out like, oh, like I don't have enough RAM. That's why it keeps crashing at this point, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, I need a new graphics card. Like, what are graphics cards? How do I put it in? So I learned all that around like, when I was like 10 and 12 years old. Um, and my dad was, was taking me out there. Like it was out in like, if y'all are familiar with the DC area, there was a bunch of computer shows like out in the Dulles area at the Dulles Town Center. So we used to go out there like almost every month and just like, browse around and find. And I had conversations with people that were experts about it. It's like, yo, like I keep running into this issue where, whenever I switch to view, my computer crashes. So like, how do I? And so from there, I was hooked. Like I just love computers. I love tech, and the drive for me to actually like want to play it and all of that kind of like inadvertently drove me to become a problem solver. So like figuring out how, all of these things kind of come to how they all kind of, come together and how to fix it. So once my mom and everybody else started seeing that, it's like, oh, so whenever we get some new electronic equipment, I'm gonna call you. You're gonna come and set it up for me. So I was like, okay, cool, cool. Like I liked it, because it was, it really did kind of help my confidence too. Cause it's like, oh, like my family believes that I can, fix this, but they also, they wanted to save some money. They didn't want to go to Geek Squad. So they would come to me. But I got a lot of training in that. I got a lot of experience with that. So fast forwarding to college, I was so I primarily dealt with hardware like my whole life. I never really I didn't really know about software, to be honest. Like I knew software is something that you could buy, but I didn't know that you can like somebody can actually just write software. Like I didn't know about that whole process until I really got to college. And that's when I like JK said, had professors like Dr. Black that really made it approachable. I know it was a controversial thing in our department that he was using this game engine called Dark GDK. It was a C++ based game engine. But I felt like it was like the best way to like learn, like going from Dark GDK to like naked C++ was like the biggest like buzzkill ever, because it was like, oh, like you have like this game engine that we're learning to use, and then shortly after that we go right into data structures and we're in the like C plus like naked C++. So it was terrible. So at that point, like I really wanted to become a game developer. I mean, I love games. I loved once I really figured out that there were careers in this field, I was working towards that. And so that kind of propelled me through programming, putting in extra hours and like really kind of just getting immersed in it. And like AJ said, like I was also a systems major, which I'm so thankful I did that because going the science route is not the move in my eyes. I think the systems route kind of gives you a wider um it gives you a well-rounded experience, because a lot of things like we'll get to this when we're talking a little bit about like going out into the real world from college. But a lot of it is just really understanding like people just don't know what tech is, and so you have to kind of like be able to communicate with non-techie people to be able to explain certain ideas and concepts. Um so yeah, like being a designated family IT person was really what kind of got me into tech. um Messing around with computers and video games, of course. Like I don't really, even at that, and when I was younger, I didn't know that people were actually created video games. I just thought they just appeared. Like, to be honest, like I just thought they just came out of the ether. It's like, oh yeah, Gran Turismo 2, here you go. Gran Turismo 3, here you go. Like just out of the blue. I didn't know there was actual people like behind the scenes making it. So yeah, so that's really kind of what got me into tech. And ever since then I've just been hooked. It's just part of my life now. So
We're I mean, and pretty, I would say, very, very similar. My like I said, my brother would bring home his stuff and teach me and tell me about it, and we talked a lot about hardware. I didn't, same as probably everybody. I didn't know a lot about what kind of careers were available. Like he went on to become an exchange administrator. I mean, he still does that. Exchange ain't going nowhere. That's guaranteed money. But that wasn't interesting to me, and I didn't know, I didn't know about programming. I didn't know about, really anything else until like I went to community college and took a C++ class, and I was like, bruh, this is crazy. Like it was just really cool for me to be able to kind of, make the computer do stuff, like make stuff out of kind of nothing. I thought was really, really interesting. And I mean, I took A plus stuff too. But hardware is in the way that I'm interested in it, like just like putting stuff together and knowing how it works and all that, like that stuff doesn't make you money. And I'm not looking to be like uh, you know, a chip engineer. I'm not interested in lithography or anything like that. So I was, trying to find something else. Cause fixing computers don't make no money. I'm still the designated. My mom is texting me right now to come fix my niece's iPad. I'm still the IT person. So, but yeah, it's like I said, very similar. I learned C++, and I was like, there was no turning back. I was like, this is the thing. This is my thing, and this is what I'm gonna do. But I didn't really have any um like role models for that. Like I didn't know how to get into that career. And so, I just started Googling and started trying to learn everything that I could about like how to become a programmer, which, if I wasn't too smart for my own good and had like maybe asked somebody else, they probably would have told me to like, go to a 4-year college. Um, but I didn't go that route. Um, but either way, being into computers, um, just wanting to know like everything that I could know. That really led me to continue and being interested, well into today. Like there's still stuff that I'm trying to learn, want to learn, interested in. Um, so yeah, that's that's cool. Pretty cool. We got like, I feel like kind of like AJ said, there's probably a lot of people with very similar stories. And it's when I was 18, 19, first, learn, it's like it didn't feel that way. So this is it's just cool to know. So how are you passing down the torch or like otherwise paving the way for like the next like blurred generation? And I guess I can go first a little bit on that one. So for me, I would say like the kids in my community, the kids in my in my life, like most of them right now have their brains wired up directly to Fortnite. But we talk about nerdy stuff. We talk about nerdy movies, nerdy games, superhero stuff, anime a little bit, that kind of stuff. And y'all probably already know I play the most with my oldest niece because she's like an angsty tween who hates Fortnite with every fiber of her being. But it's cool. Like it's not always me trying to put her on. Sometimes she put me on. Sometimes she guilt me into playing terrible games. You take your good with your bad. Um, but it's cool. And then I would say probably something similar to what y'all would say is Blurred Dimension. Like bring your black and your nerdy, or I like that thing that Mark said when we interviewed him. If you down with blackness, like bring your down for the cause and your nerdy. Like that's what we're here for. Um, so yeah, I think that would be mine.
Yeah, definitely. When Mark said, down, if you're down with black or people of color, you know, as long as you have that vibe, you're good. And what I've been doing is basically, so funny thing that you talked about your niece. Um, my nephew for some reason wants to be me, and I'm like, I don't think you want to be me because I would rather you be better than me instead. But they had like a little career, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's like, oh, I want to be a computer scientist. And so they gave me like his photo that he took of him being like a compute in with computers and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know where you get that from. He's like, well, he's always seeing you play video games and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, if he wants to be like that, that's fine. But I mean, that's fine with me. But when it comes to like the newer generation coming up, I usually, especially with when I find other young men or young ladies who are into anime or into gaming, in computers, stuff like that. I talk it up with them, and then like if I see them doing something like with photography or doing something cool, I always tell them like, 'cause I remember I ran into this one kid. He has an Instagram page. He does photography, stuff like that. I said, man, this is really dope, man. He's like, you trying to follow this career? It's like, I don't know. He's like, man, why not? Like, just follow. Don't worry about what other people say. If it's what you like, it's your passion. Go ahead and do it. So same thing with gaming being a Blerd, like if you a Blerd and you like cosplaying, make it a career. Like if you like tech, make it a career, make it something fun that you will enjoy doing for the rest of your life. Like, when we started Blerd Dimension, me and Creston, we were like, dog, like we gotta start up what we were doing at fam, because we, you know, initially with our other friends, AJ, Carl, a whole bunch of other people who so one thing was cool that we had at fam is we had this huge room called the Sun Room. So we would go there and just talk. And some, like, at first, like, everybody just being there like doing work. But most of the time it's either most of the time, when I say most of the time, I'm usually sleeping in there because I'm tired. And or it'll be people just on videos, watching movies or whatever. And then I remember one time randomly, and this is how I met AJ. We started talking about Superman. And AJ was like, yo, Superman overrated, man. He's the most overrated come to Jesus like comic book character. He's trash. Blah blah blah. Everybody's like, whoa, calm down, man. So you passionate about that? And I was like, you know what? AJ made some really good points. Like, Superman actually is like the Jesus of DC universe, except he can be hurt by kryptonite. And so a couple of times we would have conversations about Goku versus Superman, or we'll talk about, tech. We're talking about, I don't think we talked about cryptocurrency, but we talked about tech. We talked about computers. We'll talk about like what's the best thing that Apple's doing, or what's the new, like we'll talk about so much different things. And we're like, dog, how can we bring this to not only people outside of fam, but other blurs or whatever, or other people who are just interested in like that, and who's down, like Mark, like our friend Mark said, down for the black cause, stuff like that. And we were like, yo, why don't we just start a YouTube channel podcast? And like, that's what Blerd Dimension started, and at first we were like, damn, is this gonna work? And we were like, yeah, we just gotta keep going. And then we met Kevon, Tech, Carl, AJ started coming on. So, it just blew up. And yeah, so like just us talking about things, and hopefully other younger viewers are watching. If they're not, that's fine. Even if even if on here, younger viewers on here are listening to us, talking about our origins. Hopefully it resonates with them, because we know from as we grew up, we were those, not outsiders, but we were those kids that people thought, oh, you watch anime, oh, that's something white people watch, blah blah blah, or this and that, and get kind of made fun of on that. And we were like, why can't we be included in this group too? If we're nerds, and so, but yeah, so like it's just talking with kids, showing. I try to get my nephew loves Fortnite, loves loves Call of Duty, has a Switch, I think my sister's trying to get him a PS5 now. And so every time I came home from college, he would just sit down. He'd be like, "JK, are you playing a game? Can I watch?" Well, I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like sometimes one time he snuck up in my room while I was in there and turned on my PlayStation, went to Fortnite and bought the full game. And I'm like, and so I get a ding on my phone. I'm like, I didn't buy anything. And I'm like, Mom, where is Tony? She was like, oh, I don't know. She called his name. She went up to my room. He's like, boy, get your butt out of the room. And then I was like, this man bought the doggone game, man. I was like, well, oh well. Lucky it was like $7 or whatever, but still, I was, but I mean, at the same time, like, what can I do? I probably would do the same thing if I was younger. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just talking, having fun, letting the younger generation like see us like as an example. Don't have to be like us, don't have to be exactly like us, just give them a template on, and let them know like, hey, they're not alone in what they're going through or what they went through. And and if you're going to a HBCU or going to any college or whatever, hopefully you're going to HBCU, it's definitely a great experience. Definitely just find that niche of people who like what you like. Like if you got a group of people who like games, like gaming or anime, start an anime group or a gaming club and meet every week. Try to go to different competitions, stuff like that. That's what we did. And they now are starting to finally to see what gaming is about and starting to have people go to esports competitions, And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing, or that's what we've been doing as far as a younger generation. So
I'll go next because I suspect Preston's story will be better than mine. We should end on a good note. So much the exact opposite of JK. Like all the younger people in my life, I've been trying to get them into tech. I try to get them into all kinds of, they completely ignore me, right? Like I am quintessential, like old and tired and out of their, like everything I want to do or want them to do, they have no interest in. I have a really, really smart, my uncle's son is really, really smart. Dude's already, he was done with all of his calculuses, like at like 19. As soon as he got into school, he just ran through the calculus and stuff like that. So he's a civil engineer. I wanted him so bad to be a computer scientist. I begged, I pleaded, I told him it was better. I cajoled, I didn't threaten, but I did make a lot of fun of him because I was like, you should really do this. And he had zero interest. He was either going to be a violinist because he really loves music, and then he fell in love with the piano, so he wanted to be a pianist. And now he's a civil engineer. I think I haven't checked in with him. He could have changed, but I think he was pretty far into, he's at FSU right now, so he's probably almost done. But his sister, she doesn't seem to be interested in it. I don't have any nieces and nephews yet. I got little cousins though, all over the place that I've been trying. I try to get them into tech. I show them all the stuff I'm working on. And for the most part, they completely ignore me. So so I've tried I wish I had a nephew who was trying to be like JK's nephew, but I have no such little people in my life like that. So for the most part, I just really like talking about nerd stuff. So I don't think anybody in my life, I think everybody in my life knows that if you want to talk about nerd stuff for several hours, then I'm the person to come to, because I might think about things too much. That might be like one of my like fatal flaws. So I will try to like get to the most like nth degree of why something is something. And that happens a lot for me in storytelling, because that's something I really love, the storytelling in all of its forms. So I'll talk about plot for days. And so that's kind of what I do with the people in my circle. So young, old, doesn't really matter. I just talk about the things I love. Tech, I talk about cryptocurrency these days because I talk about just crypto in general because I think it's cool. And so anybody, my brother's friends who come over or whatever, I'll talk to them about it. I'll talk to anybody who's interested in investing in it or something like that. I'll just talk to them about it. I ask questions too, because I don't know much about it. I don't know as much as I want to anyway. So I don't necessarily like, I've been handing the torch in all kinds of directions. Not a lot of people have accepted the torch. But hopefully that's that'll change soon. I do a lot of things. I'm in I co-run a writers group. I'm in a artist group. So there's a lot of opportunities to meet blerds and kind of like usher them in. I know a lot of people at work see me because I'm the youngest person almost everywhere I work, which I'm not that young, but for some reason in my area, all technologists are above 40. So like they'll come and their children will be interested in tech. So they'll be like, oh, could you talk to my son, kind of thing. So I have talked to some people's children in that aspect, but I don't know if I was handing them the torch or if I was just assisting, fanning the flame their parents had already handed them. I'm stretching this metaphor, so I'm going to stop here. But yeah, so for the most part, yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to get people into this stuff. Nerdiness, blerdiness, whatever. That's being a geek. All that stuff it runs the gambit. You can be nerdy about anything. So that's another thing people need to realize. It doesn't have to be anime, comics, sci-fi or whatever. The original OG nerds were baseball statistics. That was the OG nerd stuff, right? That's how fantasy sports started, was people were just doing this themselves. They were writing down baseball statistics and then they decided, hey, let's draft players, right? And then see whose team wins at the end based on the statistics that happen throughout the season. So, and that's a multi-billion-dollar business now, because somebody got a hold of a spreadsheet and was like, this is great, right? And people were betting and stuff, and it got really out of hand. And ESPN and Yahoo were like, yeah, let's do that too. So it runs the gambit. I think if as long as you're really, really interested in the thing you do, you end up becoming a Blerd, right? Like, it's just in the thing that you do. So hopefully I'm just helping people get to that point. And like JK said, we do Blerd Dimension, and I talk about how lame the superhero Superman is as often as I can, because it's true.
Or he'll give bad critiques on anime that.
No, I give great critiques. It has the gold seal of approval if I like it. That's all I'm saying, because it's probably true.
Yeah, after the 5 that we recommended to him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not watching it." What? Oh, hey man, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm glad I watched it. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay.
But now you know it's good because I like it. So okay. Problem solved.
Yeah, to pick up where AJ left off, that's a very important point. Just like being comfortable like with who you are, because that's really what being a Blerd is embracing like this stuff that that you're interested in. And I think as much as we as much as like social media has a lot of negative parts to it, the positive is that there's so many communities out here for people that are interested in the same stuff that you are. And so for me, like growing up, like I didn't know anybody, like I had no friends that loved trains. So like that was just like a personal thing that I was just like, you know what? Like when we used to go on field trips for when I was in elementary school, we used to take the train downtown. Like I was excited about taking the train. I didn't care about going to the zoo. I could give a about all of that stuff, like all the animals. Like now I think about the zoo is kind of dark. But anyway, like I used to be super in love with that aspect of it, but I had no communities. Like there was, I'm sure that there were, but like, a 9, 10 year, 11-year-old going on the internet trying to find communities, that's just asking for trouble. So I'm glad I actually never stumbled on that. But nowadays it's like, you go on Instagram and you just type in like train fans, and then there's like a whole like list of groups and stuff that that you're interested in. So I think that's the beauty of now, is that you can really just like pick and choose like all this stuff that you want to be interested in, and just kind of form like your own identity and your own interests. I think that I can, there was very few like examples of like adults that I personally that I knew that I really wanted to be like, and it made it seem that being an adult was pretty boring. So the kids, the adults were like, oh, never grow up and this and that, and I was just like, oh man, they make adulthood seem like it's terrible. But luckily, like teenage years going into college, there was I got exposed to more examples of like what it is to be an adult. And I knew grown people that had families that were still playing video games, because that was like the whole thing was like, oh, once you're done with college, like you get a job, you get a car, you get a house, you have a family, you work until you're 65, and then you just wait to die basically. And I was like, man, I that doesn't sound right. Like I know that there's more to life. Like I still love video games. I still love like movies and comics and anime. Like I still love that stuff. Like why do I have to give that up just because I'm a, quote unquote adult? So I personally, what I try to do, like with any group of kids or teenagers or even like college students that I get in front of, is I let them know like, yo, like I'm still a gamer, and I will still beat you. And I remember, so for like 2015 until about 2019, I used to run an organization called Tag Labs, and it stood for Technology and Gaming Labs. And the whole purpose was for us to work with DC public schools and teach the kids how to make video games, basically. And so I ran that for 4 to almost 5 years, and one of the things that I started noticing was that the biggest thing about you know blur culture, and then just being exposed to technology and all of these other like fields outside of what we've been exposed to, which is sports and entertainment, um is that there's just a lack of exposure. Like whenever I get in front of kids, I'm like, how many of y'all know programmers? And nobody raises their hand. And that's really kind of the biggest thing, is the exposure and being able to put people in front of them that look like them, that are doing things outside of like sports and entertainment, being a technologist, being a developer, being somebody that is in marketing or whatever, like something that's just different. Is really just a lack of exposure. So we use video games as kind of like a bridge to, it's like, oh, like we know all of you kids are playing video games, like we're going to teach you how they work at a very conceptual level. And then this is something that you could do. You can either be a game developer, or you can go into all other sorts of career paths in tech. I mean, tech is just a umbrella that is huge. So there's so many different paths in that, but that's just kind of where the world is now. And so we have to just expose and try to get as many different people from different walks of life in front of these kids, and show them like, yo, like here's what I do. And then also like flex when you get in front of these kids, like tell them how much money you making, and then they'll listen. Like unfortunately, like that's I mean I wouldn't say unfortunately, I mean at that age, of course, like being rich and being able to have money and all this stuff is extremely attractive. So you got rappers and sports folks like the flexing all the time. It's like, yo, I got my Tesla out front. I'm in big tech. This is how much I'm making. And the kids be like, oh snap, for real? Like it's like, yeah, I don't have a Tesla. I'm just using that example. I'm not flexing that much. So but anyway, yeah, I mean,
Two of them new Xboxes though.
hey, I do well for myself.
Hey,
Uh
the company Tesla's coming soon, so it's all good.
The Blerd
absolutely.
Dimension Tesla.
Absolutely.
Make sure that my address is put in there so they can autopilot down here, because it's a company.
I don't think they can find Tallahassee. I'm
No,
sorry, man.
hey man,
It's off the grid.
give it the longitude and latitude. It'll find it.
It's just like it's like an empty spot on the map, man. I'm sorry,
Hey, man.
man.
I'll pick it up right outside of Tallahassee. Ain't no thing. Ain't no thing.
But yeah, it's really like that. It's really just kind of being an example to kids and showing like yo, I play video games. I love this stuff. I love watching nerdy movies and comics, anime. Like I still love that stuff, but I still get my work done, and I'm still a responsible adult. I still I have a day job. I do this and this and that, and I'm able to enjoy these things because I did put in the hard work and chose a career in technology. So that's really just the biggest thing, is just exposure. Just like as a kid, just be like, you don't necessarily have to be like, all right, you need to become this. It's just you gotta like approach it as like, yo, like this is what I do, this is what this other person does. Is just expose them to it, and then let them choose and decide what they want to do. And that's kind of like the biggest thing with passing on the torch, and help making sure the next generation is all set for this new world.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it depends on like your place in their lives for sure. Because like Mark said, like your kids are gonna see what you do and they're gonna want to do what you do. And so as far as those people that you can directly influence, that's definitely like fertile ground to plant some seeds. And then like you said, for the other kids, just like kids are definitely impressed, easily impressed by being able to buy stuff you want when you like my one of my niece's friends, his family is not so well off, unfortunately. So he didn't have a gold subscription for a while. Had to get off Xbox or whatever. And then I guess they got him one recently, and he was psyched, but he wanted this other game. He wanted Borderlands. It was on sale for like $14-15. Um, and so, but I mean, there was no way he was going to be able to buy it. So I bought it. I bought it for her, and I put money in her account. She gifted it to him, and like, he was over the moon. And like, I feel like, what I'm saying, if you can, like, those types of things are the things that are going to be like, oh, so if I do that, I can do this. Like, that's gonna, get them interested. And I gifted him my Game Pass Ultimate. Like, you remember when you posted about it being on sale on Target, like the 3 month? I bought like 3 of them junks and I gave them to him last week. They was excited. But yeah, so I agree. I wholeheartedly, like, that's definitely the way to reach young people where you don't necessarily have the kind of influence, like where they want to mimic you. But yeah, man. So what, I guess, as far as like older people, like, what advice would you give to students, like college students who are graduating, in the coming years in 2021 and beyond? And I guess
Um,
oh,
go
okay,
ahead. You want to go? You can go ahead.
yeah, I can go first. I would say be in community with people. Like, be where people are, and like, be a part of, their community. Be helpful. Like, nobody can be an island. Nobody can do everything themselves. And like, when you do need something, because everybody's going to need something at some point, you want them to feel good about being able to help you if they can. You want them to be like, oh, nah, so and so is solid, like, I want to be able to do this for them. And that would be probably, like, people say networking, and it's like, networking is cool, exchanging business cards, being connected to people loosely is cool, but being in community with people is better. And that would probably be my advice.
Yeah. Definitely help where you can, be a part of a community, um, and do what you can to help anyone in need. Definitely work hard and show that you're a hard worker and that you always get your stuff done regardless of any challenges you have. Because I'm gonna give an example for me. I have a problem like working too hard and sleeping at my desk. So sometimes, so one time I actually I didn't get in trouble, but like somebody was like, "Hey man, I saw you super duper." He's like, "I'm not, mad at you. I know you work hard. I know you always get your stuff done. That's why I'm not worried. But for the look of it, I don't want you to get in trouble." Oh, okay, cool. So they are looking out for me, but I'm still working on it myself to fix that. But what I'm saying by that example is, like, regardless of what challenge you have with yourself, always work hard to get your stuff done, so that the perception you is that they're always going to talk good about you. To say, oh, he may have this problem, but he always get his work done. So I always go to him to get stuff done. And also, to whatever you're working at, whatever you want to be, try to find somebody who's already there and and learn from them. So if you want to be a game programmer, try to find a game programmer who is already in the industry and see, like, hey, I don't have too much experience yet, but I want to learn from you. Is there anything you can teach me, blah, blah, blah. Or if you're in graphic design, or if you're in a programmer, if you want to go to Google, if you want to go to Apple, whatever, um, try to find like a mentor. Try to find somebody who's in that position you want to be at. And also, too, like Crescent said, like, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you have to give up on things. Like, a lot of people tell me, like, oh, if you play video games, that's a waste of time. I'm like, it doesn't have to be a waste of time. You can use it to your advantage. Like, you got kids who play with toys and make millions of dollars on YouTube. You got kids who at 15 are pro gamers, making playing 10 hours a day, playing making way more than I am in my tech job. Like, so don't tell me, like, just because they are doing something that out of the norm is not something that will make a whole bunch of money. Because sometimes money is not it. Like sometimes for some people, it's just about doing like they like to do, like and having something over their heads and having God take care of the rest. But that's everybody's different. But for you, find what fits for you. Find something that you love. Find something that you want to do, and just pursue it. Whether if you have to find a job that's not what you like to do, and just do what you like to do outside of work, and do that. Like AJ do drawing, writing, Blerd Dimension, whole bunch of stuff outside of work. Me gaming, Crescent Gaming, us doing Blerd Dimension outside of work. Like, it may be tough, you gotta balance your schedule a little bit, but that's all part of life, this balance and getting stuff done and working to not make time but manage your energy to where you can have time to do what you want to do. So but yeah, just whatever you do, just don't give up, keep doing it, keep pursuing it. Whatever challenges you have, just thank God you have those challenges that you can overcome, and just blow through those challenges and obstacles so that you can be better and you be better off, because any progress that you make is still progress at the end of the day. So just keep moving forward and just keep progressing. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I would definitely say like don't depend on your degree. Don't depend on curriculum, don't depend on any of that. All of that stuff is just a foot in the door. Like just do what you got to do with that, get it over with. But the main thing is you got to learn how to problem solve. Like I feel like the problem with the way that we're taught in school for the majority of our curriculum is really you're learning to take a test in a lot of these classes. There was definitely exceptions with our experience, like with at FAMU. We had like three class, or I would say four classes, where it was really just dependent on you like delivering a project, you figuring out, like the professor didn't know what you were doing, the professor didn't care how you did it. It was all about like figuring it out and producing that, and then presenting that to the class, and telling the professor how you did it, how you came up with the decisions and things of that sort. And that was really kind of like a real glimpse into how the world worked, especially in a professional sense. It's really about you coming up with solutions to a variety of problems, and it could be it does. This is not necessarily in tech in general. Just this is all across the board, and I think that's where um, a lot of people are having a hard time, coming out of college and finding a job, is being able to communicate that to employers and be like, yo, like, like, yeah, you got a 3.6, but like, can you, what value are you going to provide for me? Like this 3.6 don't mean nothing. Like it just means like you're able to follow, basic instructions, but like what will happen in scenarios where none of us know the answer, but it's on you to kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? That's what really employers are looking for. They're not looking for people that can, read and regurgitate. So make sure that, that you're building stuff, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be tech stuff. It could be whatever. Like make sure you're able to like make something from scratch. Like it's just something, you know, just going through that process of like problem solving. Like that is like the most important skill that you can ever come up with, like before heading out and trying to get a job or even starting a business. So definitely do that. And then like JK was saying, like if there's somebody that you really kind of admire and you look up to, reach out to them, like, like send them an email, like find out, hit them up on LinkedIn, hit them up on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, like however way that they're out there, try to get in contact with them, get their email, and just send them an email and just be like, hey, this is my background. Um, I really admire, this, and then have a specific ask. Don't like just be like, hey, I would like to talk to you. It's like, no, like, hey, I would like to learn how you blah 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 blah, or how, what are some ways that you can if you were to, be in my shoes, like how would you navigate? Like have a specific ask. Don't be like, hey, I just want to talk to you. It's like, dog, like these people are super busy. So be respectful of their time. And then have a specific ask, but also, do the work up front as well, and make sure that you're coming off as professional, and you're proofreading, making sure all of that stuff is in order. When to whoever you want to chat with. So definitely do that. And then like Suave said, like, don't be shy. Like join these communities. Like there are a ton of um communities out here that you can join, and just like pick the brains of people. Like people are surprisingly like this is it seems counterintuitive, but like a lot of people are like dying to help. Like it is, I think it's human nature, of course, like, we have a lot of bad in this world, but I think the good in this world also is that people are like really like genuinely willing to help you. So if you just show up and just do the basics and be like, hey, like I'm graduating with this degree. Do you have any pointers as to like what I can do to spruce up my resume? You have people that will review your resume and like give you feedback on that. So like just take advantage of this. Don't be shy. Like I know, like I'm definitely an introvert, and it took me a lot of like practice and time to really kind of get comfortable in like these new spaces. But like you really come to realize like everybody else is kind of going through the same thing, like, and so it's really kind of comforting. But just, yeah, put yourself out there. Don't be shy, and don't just send resumes and stuff. Like resumes are getting, I mean, it is like, have graduated with a degree is a commodity now. So you're not standing out, unfortunately. But you got to go out and do the work. You got to stand out, and also make a website. There's so many like easy tools. Like like I said, you don't have to be in tech, but just have a website where you can kind of show your creativity and show your uniqueness. You can use something like Squarespace, Wix, or WordPress. Like there's so many tools out here that you don't need to know coding or anything like that to get a website going. So just stand out. Like don't just, like I said, don't rely on the curriculum and your degree, because that is just a foot in the door, and a lot of places is not even that. It's like more like a finger in the door. So yeah, but yeah, just stand out and be creative and learn how to problem solve.
Everybody pretty much said all the right stuff, in my opinion. I really would just add that, like, whatever it is that you're trying to do with your degree, or what that you're trying to do for your career, like you have to actually do it. Like when I got out of college, I did not program at all. I programmed to get my degree. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna get a programming job, I just show them what I programmed before. So I guess they should recognize that and hire me, and then I'll program again. But the truth is, programmers program, and they don't wait for permission to program. They just program. Those are the ones they want to hire. They don't want to hire somebody who's trained in it but doesn't do it, right? Because it's similar to what Preston's saying. Like the problem solving comes in the activity. It doesn't come in the study. The study is those are tools, but you don't learn how to use those tools until you're confronted with a problem. And the funny thing about these tools is there are different ways to use them, and you don't learn that until you run into multiple scenarios. So that's my best advice to anybody who's in tech or in whatever you're doing. You should be doing that anyway. Even when they're not paying you, you should be doing that somehow for yourself. You should find a way to get some reps in, basically. Go somewhere, find a way to muscle up on whatever your skill set is. Because if you don't do it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how well you did in school. That doesn't transfer really. It's like it goes away. It's like almost like weight training. It atrophies after a while, right? So, but it evaporates much faster than muscle tissue. I can tell you that right now. Like you graduate and you're already behind. Not to mention what you knew, you forgot. So now you're like twice as far behind. Like I've noticed that in everything. That's in all of life, not just tech. I like to draw, like JK said. I like to storytell. I'm starting to draw again. Like I got real busy with, just my regular job and stuff like that. And I stopped drawing as much. And so now I'm trying to get to the point where I want to do my own comic book, like a web comic or something like that. And simple stuff that I know I can draw sap so much of my energy because it takes so long for me to kind of get used to doing it again, right? So it's like it's like getting started again. It's like when an object needs to move, the most of the energy is spent getting the object started. Like the moving part uses less energy than the actual getting the thing rolling, right? So I know that if I don't draw more, I'm not going to be good enough to do a comic book. I'm not going to be, it doesn't matter how well I can draw a single image. I need to draw several hundred images in order to be considered a comic book artist. I can't, or a web comic artist. I can't just be like, oh, I can draw a good picture, because then my comic will literally take a decade, because I'll draw a good picture every few months and it'll have to be the right picture for the right panel for the right scene, and it'll never happen. So I just say if there's something you're trying to do for your career, you got to do it, and that goes for being an entrepreneur as well. You just got to start a business. Like you don't wait for the opportunity or when the iron's hot. Like you start the business, right? And don't just start any business. You should usually aim for something that you're either knowledgeable about or passionate about, because that leads to the knowledge. But you should start something, right? And you should see if you can get it to grow, and that's where you'll learn, and that's where you'll get better at it, and that's inevitably where you'll find yourself in your career, is through doing. It's not learning. Learning is a key element. You can't go in there ignorant, but you need to do it.
Word. So we got a little bit over 10 minutes left. I wanted to ask, like, real quick. Yeah, like I said, I went to community college, John went to FAM. How do y'all feel like FAMU supported or maybe hindered like your nerdy pursuits outside of like, you know, your major and your studying?
Ooh, haha. So I would say definitely. Interesting enough, some of the professors were nerdy too. Um, in a sense, more like us in a nerd and nerdy, not just like very knowledgeable on computers. So sometimes we would talk with like Dr. Black or another my thesis professor, Dr. Allen. I'll talk to him a lot about stuff, whether it be tech or gaming and stuff like that, and I would spark ideas from talking with him. So
Dr. Black loved hip hop. Like
yeah,
he
yeah.
loved
Dr.
hip
Black
hop.
was a DJ.
He could
He was a
nerd out on some
DJ
hip
when he
hop.
was younger. Yeah, he was a DJ um when he pledged with the Alphas. Was it Alphas? Yeah. And so but I would say the only hindrance that we had at FAMU was that some of the older folks outside of tech didn't understand like what the whole big deal with gaming was when we tried to do tournaments or when we tried to do game competitions. We actually had a huge game competition on the campus, and then they got mad because there was too many people who was not students. And so we were like, because it was not just black people there, it was people of color, it was white people, it was everybody was there from Tallahassee to play in a fighting tournament. And we were like, what's the problem? Like people now know, like, hey, we can go here and have fun. You're like, what's the problem? And so they were like, well, it's too many. And I was like, see, y'all don't understand. And then when we presented to them, like, what's the importance of this and how we can have our own con for video games and stuff like that with other schools and have competitions, have our own esports. And they still kind of didn't understand either. And then as we kept going with our video game club, even with our anime club, then they kind of like started to see, once it started blowing up in the media, because they want their return on investment. Once it started blowing up in the media about video games, it's like, oh, okay, this is what they were talking about. Yeah, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. And so we're like, y'all kind of, it's too late because y'all wanted to hit it while it's hot now instead of hitting when it was barely burning. Like, so I would say definitely was some hindrances, but there was a lot more there was a lot more good that came out of it because we all came together, and as AJ said, we just started doing stuff. And as we started doing stuff, we started getting popularity with a lot of professors, a lot of people who wanted to support us. And so, after that, it kind of just grew after that. So, but I think all those challenges at the end of the day was the best thing. So,
Yeah, I remember. I will never forget this day. Like when we finally decided, like, okay, um, we're gonna actually create a video game organization at at Florida, Florida A&M University. We went up, we got our paperwork and this and that. We went to the I think it's the Office of Student Activities, and I forget the lady's name, but we went up to her and was like, "Hey, here's our application for starting a video game club here at FAMU." She was like, "Video game club?" Like, just completely just like, "What are you talking about? Get the out of my office!" Like, and then what it really did was it allowed us to figure out like how to pitch things and how to communicate things and actually do the hard work to make this thing happen. Because I mean, we didn't have a lot of support, or we didn't have any budget or anything. It took us like maybe 2 years to really get a proper meeting with student council, government, and really um sit in front of them and be like, "Yo, like, here's our vision, like, here's what we've done, blah 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 blah." And so it really like at first, going through it and being in the muck of it was really frustrating, but it really did kind of prepare you for the real world and understanding like not everybody's going to see your vision. So you have to communicate that, and you have to not only show your vision but also execute, because now you got people's attention. So like, what you gonna do with this? Like, we all right, here's the space, like, do it, and that really taught us to not be flaky. And that's the other thing that I'm noticing with as a kid, like you're I think you're prone to flakiness, especially like like going to high school and then like college. You kind of like you really try to, I think the biggest thing is that transition from like being a teenager to an adult is like shedding that flakiness and like saying, like, keeping your word, like, yo, like, we're gonna be here at 5:30, and so that really means you're gonna be there at 5 to shut to set up and get people, get everything situated. And so it really did it was tough lessons. Like I said, like, some people really did see our vision and really did like champion us and get us the proper connections that we needed. But there was definitely a lot of people that just needed like to see it to really understand it. So I think HBCUs in general, like, they always say like, the HBCU experience really does get you ready for, the real world. I think some of that is just I'm gonna say it, but I think a lot of that is just bad customer service. Um, but and I think they try to be like, "Oh yeah, it's HBCU experience." It's like, nah, this is just bad customer service. I'm sorry. Um, but outside of that, you have people that will actually push you and give you the opportunities. Because I feel like, I definitely wouldn't have got the attention and the support if I went to like, a typical PWI. Like, people, like, if you just show up, like, they will look out for you. Like, that's the beauty of HBCUs, like having those relationships with these professors. They want to see you win. They want to ultimately, or I would say majority want to see you win. There's a couple bad apples in there. I won't get into that, but um, there are definitely when they say like in regards to FAMU, when they say FAMU Lee, it really is a family. Like, when I moved back up here to DC, like, I found out there's a huge like alumni network up here, and like everybody's always sharing like opportunities back and forth. Like, you don't even have to be a part of like a fraternity or sorority. It's like the fact that you like graduated from an HBCU, like you're part of this, like, this fraternity and this sorority, like you're part of this group that is always just going to look out for each other. And I would say like that's like the beautiful thing about, you know, going to a HBCU.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much like Soul Panel, like these things all tie together. My answer is very close to both JK and Creston's. In terms of like the obstacles that we faced, uh, I don't, I can't really remember any obstacle that was different from regular college obstacles. Like Christian said, like flakiness is a college thing. So like for me, most of the obstacles were internal anyway. It's like get up, do the work. I never did homework. That was a huge flaw of mine. The good thing about being in tech is a lot of times homework doesn't count. Because if it did, I would not have graduated because I never did it, which is why I regret taking these business classes because homework is very important to those people. But I think like in terms of I never did any of like the video game stuff with Creston and JK. I think we were lucky that we are kind of like insulated from everything because I think Creston has shared this, but we talked about this before on maybe the Blerd Dimension or something like that. But we all kind of dreaded going to an HBCU in a way. It's like I mean, like we're all Black, we love Black people, but we're also like sometimes Black people don't love us. Like we show up and they're like, nah, get out of here, right? So there was a fear. The fear was going there and not fitting in at all, right? And I grew up watching a different world, and yeah, I absolutely wanted to be like Dwayne Wayne, all right? But you just didn't. My experience with Black people up to that point, when it came to nerdiness, air quotes, right, was that it was you were different, right? But lucky for us, we had the sunroom, like JK brought up earlier. That room, I mean, we still communicate with like a good percentage of the people from that who used to hang out in that room. We still communicate to this day. We're still talking. We still pass stuff around, information around to each other. So the obstacles for me was internal. I'm afraid to be around, because my experience with, I played D&D in high school. I was also on the football team, but that was less important than D&D, kind of in a way, because I didn't play that much. So D&D, I got to play all the time. So the just being able to do something cool. I had to hide the D&D from the football team, obviously, because, Black guy playing D&D. First of all, only Black guy there playing it. Second of all, you can't be wearing your football jersey on Friday and rolling dice. Like, you can't do both. So I think most of my obstacles are internal. Like, it's like, I'm going to HBCU. I'm worried about how I'm going to be perceived. And my mom kept telling me, she's like, you meet your best friends in college. Like, you really do meet the best friends of your life in college. And, you go to HBCU now, they also get to be Black. So they all understand you as well. So I do have friends that went to PWIs. And like Kristen said, there's not the support. Like you said, I see Dr. Black all the time. He lives in my neighborhood somewhere. I haven't seen his house yet, but I see him all the time. So yeah, it's for me, like I said, obstacle was just, I was just worried that I wasn't gonna be accepted, and I found the sunroom, and it was, I mean, shoot, it's a match made in heaven for me. It's cool.
And sometimes you meet your frenemies too.
Yeah, JK and I are more like frenemies than friends. Like when we're on the Blue Squad during Blerd Dimensions, when we're taking on Creston, Carl, and Tech, we're the best of friends, singing together and all kinds of stuff. But
right, unity.
Like, during the regular life, there's a little bit of a rivalry. I ain't started though. I just started. I'm participating, but I ain't started.
Yeah, you definitely brought up a good point about like I feel like one of the things I took away from fam was that, like, as Black people, we're not a monolith. Like there were so many different types of like people even within our like culture and stuff. Like that was a beautiful thing, and I also felt like, AJ, like when I first got to campus, I was like, yo, like I don't fit in at all. Like this is kind of rough. And then like you just kind of slowly but surely start meeting people that are, interested in the same stuff. Like when I was in freshman year, I was so frustrated that people were all people were playing were like Call of Duty and Madden and then 2K, like all the typical like, you know, bro sports and blah 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 and all that stuff.
Socially acceptable black sports. You can
Yeah,
say
like all of
black.
that.
I mean, black games. Socially acceptable black
Yeah,
games.
I was so frustrated. I'm like, dog, I know people. So what I started doing, I got on Microsoft Word, put up a little flyer. I was like, I'm trying to play Halo, dog. Like this was Halo 3 at the time. This was like a year after it came out. So I was like, I was hooked on that. So I was like, yo, like, let me just start putting them up. And then I met like 20 some people. And then like from there, it was people that we went on to go ahead and actually create the video game club on campus. So yeah, like that's the thing. Like, well, black people, like, we're so diverse, isn't just even within our like culture in general. Like we're not a monolith, and that was kind of one of the big things about going to HBCU, really kind of experiencing that firsthand.
Yeah, that's dope. And I, I mean, I didn't go to HBCU, but I didn't. So I live in PG County now. Me, Creston. Oh well, JK lives in the area, but not in PG. But I grew up around my people, and I definitely realizing that Black people are not a monolith was a great like benefit of living here the last. Oh dang, it's been a long time now. The last decade or so. So yeah, but we are almost out of time. So definitely want to really quickly thank HBCU Con for having us on. We want to let y'all know we do have a podcast, the Blerd Dimension podcast. We're on YouTube. We do it live on Twitch on Thursday nights. It is not PG-13. It is like mature audiences only. Please do not watch this with your children, with your grandma. Like it's not for them. But we talk about a lot of the same stuff we're talking about here: nerdiness, blackness, and all the stuff that we're getting into. So definitely check that out. If we have any questions, anything like that, we got about 3 minutes. We can answer something. But otherwise, appreciate y'all.
Yeah, nah,
Definitely,
definitely.
definitely thank you, HBCU Con, for letting us have this platform and reach out to everybody. Definitely, I think it's awesome that we have HBCU Con, because not only we're showing that how HBCUs are, but also like the different aspects of blerdiness and the different aspects of how diverse it is across the board at different HBCUs. And because a lot of people, funny thing, a lot of people don't even know like how many HBCUs are out there, and or that they even exist. I remember high school, they were like, "You going where? Who?" I'm like, we had a Jersey day. I wore a FAMU jersey. It's like, FAMU, what's that? I was like, it's right across the street from FSU. It's like, really? I didn't know there was a school over there. I was like, yeah, okay, well,
Yeah.
now you know. But
Yeah, this is going to be great for a lot of students that are planning on going to college. To HBCU Con will be a great vehicle to show like how unique HBCUs are, especially even
definitely.
in the blurred space. So no, thank you all for like just having this organization and putting this con together.
Yep. And
Absolutely.
yep. And you can follow us at Blerd Dimension on IG, Facebook, YouTube, type in Blerd Dimension. We're also on Spotify
Oh
to
yeah.
hear our podcast, and Anchor for just type in Blerd Dimension. And like Swa said, it's definitely not PG-13. Definitely for mature audiences, because we talk about real. We be real. We be real. So definitely, yeah. Thanks for joining us. Swa, sorry to close out on the closeout, but thanks
That's
for
good.
joining
That's
us,
good.
and
We
hope y'all had a
appreciate
good
y'all.
time. Hope y'all learned a lot about us, and hope that we brought some light to y'all, and hope y'all don't feel alone.
Yeah, man. Enjoy the rest of the con.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I think we're done now. So we're not live no more.